Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. İyyâke na'budu ve iyyâke nesta'in. Ehdina sıratal mustakim. Sıratal lezîne en'amte aleyhim. Gayril mağdubi aleyhim veleddâlin. Subhan rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Vesselamu alel mursalin. Elhamdülillahi Rabbil Alameen. We'll start out with a bit of dhikr to focus us and concentrate a little bit more our energies, inshallah. And when we're doing the repetitive formula of La ilaha illallah, I'll chime in over it, singing on it. So keep the rhythm going in the same way, harmoniously, so that when I sing with it, I sing harmoniously on that rhythm, right? And that way it really picks the whole thing together. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. أهيم ودي بذكر ربي فذكر ربي هو شفاه الله الله الله ربي لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله الله الله الله ربي عوني وحسبي ما لي سواه الله الله الله ربي عوني وحسبي ما لي سواهم أحببت ربا هو اعتمادي لكل شيء هو يشاء الله الله الله ربي عوني وحسبي ما لي سواهم وكله لغير ربي فيه عذاب فيه شقاء أي فاز فاني عن فنائي له حياة له بقاء أي ربي صلي على محمد من ذاته النور وذيه أو عليه وصحبه كرام له حدود له وفاء الله الله الله ربي عوني وحسبي ما لي سواه الله الله الله ربي عوني وحسبي ما لي سواه إلا الله لا إله إلا لطيف لا إله إلا breath لا إله إلا with your breath لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. Muad, can you just recite just a short surah of Quran, short, anything? Just recite it now, anything. Bismillah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك إن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب.
صدق الله العظيم. That could not have been a more appropriate surah for the theme of this discussion and what we've been having since yesterday, especially the part that in difficulty there is ease, and surely in difficulty there is ease. And one of the most dynamic meanings of that you can relate in your own life is that whenever you come and have a circumstance or a situation which appears to be challenging and difficult, that in it, whether you see it afterwards, or you may even see it before, and you may be blessed at the moment to see it in the moment of happening, that later you reflect, no matter what it was, that it had in it a khair for you. It had it in ease for you, meaning something which ease means brought you to peace, brought you to reconciliation about a circumstance, whatever it is that happened. Or that is an operating dynamic in all of our lives. If we just see the experience and not extract the kernel of Allah's tarbiyah, of Allah's lordship at that moment, what is He messaging us at that very moment? What is Allah telling us? You know, what is Allah communicating here? One has to keep in mind always, and we were just talking about that this morning, that each one of us, and in fact everyone in the whole universe, all of the world, every human being is at the threshold, at the exact place, time, moment and experience for them to realize the reality of who they are, no matter what circumstance they're in. We are all intricately and guided and designed and impacted by the overall arching evolutionary imprint that we were speaking about yesterday of Elasti bi Rabbikum, that am I not your Lord? And all of the arwah answered yes. That means that before creational effulgence, before the manifestation of creation, there was this reality of acknowledgement of the one and only, the source of all things, which is then manifested throughout all of creation at any given moment, and especially given to each human being because we have the representative of that light, that original light within us, echoing that same Elasti bi Rabbikum. So life itself, as it is not disconnected from the original intent of that Allah Azza wa Jal intended and purposed the creation with. It is in the DNA of every human being. I mean, in the spiritual DNA and in the physical DNA. Both are mirror. One is a mirror and a reflector of the other, to discover and awaken to our original purpose that is stamped within our being. So, if you find yourself in a difficult situation, and you're identified at the very moment with that situation, could it be a tragedy or a death or something of that nature, or even something really good, a birthday party or whatever it is. You know, you're sitting there, oh, it's my birthday. Oh, and everybody's, bringing me presents, and we all go through this. It kind of gives us a little bit of a egoic boost, and we all feel wonderful about ourselves, and it's all right. I mean, people love us and they want to celebrate it, and there's nothing wrong with it. But what is it really? Isn't it just something passing? Isn't it that how many birthdays do you can have, and they come and they go, yet all along you still don't find yourself content. You still don't find yourself happy. You still are anxious. You're still fearful. Years go by and you haven't changed. The world changes around you, but you have. Why has that not happened? It hasn't happened because we haven't awakened to that inner call, that inner stamping of Ilasti bi Rabbikum. If you, at any time along this timeline that we just described, if you awaken to that and you begin to witness in front of you the inna ma usri yusra wa inna ma usri yusra, you see it, that you read the situation. Well, what's the message here for me? Just the very beginning of questioning adds a new dimension to your life. It's an alchemy. You have all of the elements. We all have all the elements within us. Allah has not left out anything from His creation, from His design of the human form. We are taqweem, we are created in a beautiful way with all these elements. So what ignites those elements then to combine and to become harmonized with the original drive within us is the beginning that you ask yourself, why am I not happy? Why am I here? What is death? Why all the things that I have now in the world, I thought, oh, I'm going to get my PhD and I'm going to get a job at the university and it's all going to be great, and then it's not. Why? These are, when that questioning begins on a very profound level, and it becomes part of the vision of your horizons, where you look at your life that way, that begins the flame under the pot of the alchemist's pot, because then those elements begin to stir, and all along the way, then those elements begin to fuse. You see connection between your desires and where they lead you to, and then the higher within you, because now you're becoming sensitive to the relative and conditioned desires within you. So what I'm trying to point at here and share with you today is that do not despair. Do not despair of Allah's mercy. Allah says, Kataba ala nafsi rahma. I've written upon myself mercy. Allah's mercy is unfathomable and cannot be controlled by your thinking that you're not having it. What you're thinking is not true, because above and beyond that, there is Allah's mercy. And so the elements that come to distract us, in our language that we've become used to, and if you think about it, like it's shaitan and iblis, right? Now, the root meaning of shaitan, shatana, means to make you sense distance, right? It gives you a sense of distance, right? Well, doesn't Allah say that I'm closer to you than your jugular vein? Does He not say that the whole universe cannot contain me, but the heart of the movement contains me? So what is it that you're listening to that makes you think, oh, I'm way far away from Allah? It's rubbish. It's a shaitan. And what gives shaitan power is your nafs, is your listening, your hearing it, and focusing on it. That's why we say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, because it's not that shaitan has power. Shaitan has no power. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There's no power or strength except by the one, Allah Azza wa Jal. Shaitan, that energy, is a wiswasu fi sudur al-nas. It whispers in the breast of man. It's a whisper. It's weak. It's nothing, except if you hear it and listen to it and give it life and give it hands and give it eyes and give it drive and give it legs, and then it takes you over. But it takes you over by some of these dynamic elements, like making you feel in one particular way you're not good enough. I'm not. Look at these sheikhs and teachers and this and that and these special beings and all of that, you are doing yourself a disservice if you have all this in your heart. Those beings that were people that you look up to and that you get mentored by, they have the same issues that you do. They've been maybe a bit at it longer, putting their shaitan aside, strengthening their inner resolve, but we're all the same. We're all the same. And so what happens is this idea of distancing, of being away from Allah, is, if it comes to you, really just recognize it for what it is, just a lie. And take refuge in that you have within you the whole universe. Imam Ali, when he was asked what is the human being, he said the human being thinks he's but a little hanging piece of flesh, but in him, he made a sign with his hand. I said this yesterday. He made a sign with his hand saying that the whole universe is contained within him. And this is what Allah says also in that Hadith Qudsi. So this is a practical way, one of the practical ways for us to evoke that knowledge and apply it in the moment so that we can have inna ma'a usri yusra, inna ma'a usri yusra. Second thing is the word iblis. Is the Arabic word is the ablasa, which means despair. The actual root meaning means to despair, to disparage you or create despair, depression. And, you feel, you emotionally feel stepped on and you can't get out from under it. This is the act of shaitan, the act of iblis. But again, this is this idea of that you are distant and that you are being depressed and it's a lie. Remember that what you have in you is aru bil amri rabbi. I repeat this many times because I think it's, for me personally, it's been a dynamic, alchemical additive in the alchemy of my life, that if I remember it with even just by my thinking and by saying it and reading it and sharing it with others, that it has a definitive effect on life itself, because it's part of the flame that you're building and in the alchemist pot of your life to fuse all these diverse energies into focusing into one direction. Is to remember that you have the untouched, pure light, source of guidance, source of mercy, life beyond life, life beyond death, residing at the core of your being. And the rest of it is just a construct which is resulted from your upbringing, your social, your parents, your genetic background, etc., etc., etc. That is the filter in which the ruh finds its expression through. And this is the way Allah designed the creation, so that, and designed us in particular, so that we remember, it's interesting, the word remember, it means to reconnect. It means that you already have. The member that you're thinking of to reconnect with is already within you, so you remember. You bring that member, the true member of which is within your heart, to bring that to the fore. I want to read from the book called The Garden of Meaning by Sheikh Fadlallah, about, and it's very connected to what we're saying here. It's the chapter on head, heart, mind, and soul. It's a very sort of common theme that we have in the world today. And he says here, it is often said that the heart knows all, but how do you know the heart? See, this is very important. We all say, well, how do I know it's my heart? And how do I know? It is often said that the heart knows all, but how do you know the heart? How can you distinguish between transient feelings or emotions and that which is inspired or reliably intuitive? Clear mind and intelligence are important to relate efficiency with the sensory world. The mind is the link between the rest and me, and that includes my soul and the world we live in. To deal with outer life, you need a clear mind, but to connect with life itself, you need a pure heart. So I want to talk a little bit about what Sheikh Fadlallah said here, is that we've been given an aql, a mind, a discerning mind. And that mind, ultimately what we want is a clear mind. Now, having a clear mind is a process. For many gifted people, they have a clear mind already, but we're not those people. I'm not that person. We're all full of a lot of rubbish. So how do we break through rubbish and minutia and conditioned thinking and so on, so that we can be truly that barzakh, the mind being the barzakh, between the ruh and our experience in the world, discerning and gaining discrimination, so that we begin to know what is the difference between what is coming from our heart or as opposed to negative emotions or so on. Now, this process of purifying the mind has some very basic elements to it. Most of us have unwittingly and through living our lives as anyone growing up as a child, watching TV, being educated, listening to music of all sorts, we develop this center of sort of buzzing beehive of thoughts, a lot of them repetitive, some of them wild, some of them, and so untethered and not focused. And I think the issue here is about focus. Now, if you look at the recommendations that Sheikh Hamdi was speaking about yesterday, and what we have is our experience in the practices of the Deen of Islam, and which all practices throughout history, the Islam appearing as different modes throughout time in Buddhism and Hindu thought and the Vedas and over 124,000 prophetic traditions that we know of that are mentioned, I believe, in the Quran and certainly alluded to by the Prophet and his companions, that there were many of these permutations that address the issue of mind. So there are remedial practices to do, and we have to do those in order to quiet the mind so that we can have the impulses, the drives of the ruh find its way into our consciousness, into awakened consciousness. And the way that we do that is, one of the ways we do that is by dhikrullah. Now, dhikr is considered or mentioned that the dhikrillah tatminu qulub. Upon the dhikr of Allah, the heart is made tranquil. What does it mean? It means it's talking about the container of the ruh, the heart, is no longer a jumbled up beehive that we're talking about now, full of all kinds of notions and so on. So dhikrullah is a focus of concentration upon and resonating with the reality, which at first we only allude to. We don't, at beginning, to have a taste for it. We have an intuition. So a lot of people have an intuitive sense of the beyond time, the beyond space within them. People who have practiced meditation sense a sense of quietude within them, and their mind becomes less in the forefront and less bothersome. But what is left there is this witnessing, this basira, this light of vision that you have, and that is directly connected with your ruh. So right then and there, you begin to have a thread of you building like a thread, a tunnel, a window, whatever you want to call it, where the light begins to shine through, and thoughts don't matter. Thoughts and the minutiae of thoughts and the constructs of thoughts and the emotion that comes as spurred on by thoughts, etc., then start to wane. So we have no excuses. We have, again, what it takes to start on the path of tezkiyat al-nafs, of purifying the self, not necessarily by sweeping the floor of the mosque, although that's a good thing to do, or giving charity, that is an excellent thing to do. All those things help. But in concentrated way, in a way that helps you as an individual, because we're at a time right now where that's the predominant wave. People, and I may be going off a little here on a tangent, so please be patient with me. People are rejecting organized religion right and left, including Islam. Because how is Islam is any different than what Christianity and Judaism and Hinduism? It becomes, this archaic collection of do's and don'ts and guilt and punishment and, teach your parents or your mullahs teaching you to do this or that, or you'll burn in hell, or you're gonna, whatever it is. This is not what people want today. It's not what the younger generations want. You go to the mosques now. Besides, I'm not talking about this one, but generally speaking, you go to the mosque. Do you go there for spiritual development? I don't see it. And I think a lot of people don't, young people and people awakening, they don't see it either. You go to a church, same thing. Is there somebody there who can counsel you, and relate with you with your quest for realization, for becoming, what is enlightenment? How can I live a life of true joy and true life and be really alive? Very little available there. So the emphasis now going forward is that we as individuals have to learn about this path and apply it to ourselves individually. We don't, if you want to know anything now about fiqh or history of Islam, you just ask Sheikh Google, and that's it. You get online, or if you play with AI, you could do that, or whatever it is. Information is available. You want to know all the fiqh of Hanafi, you can go online and get it, or of Jafari, or Hanbali, or Shafi, whatever. Or you want to read the books of Ibn Arabi, or Al-Ghazali, or whoever, Shabastari, you can find all the poetry, you can find. So, we're in a very interesting evolutionary time as a spiritual development on the evolutionary curve, especially as it pertains to Islam and to Muslims. Because we have all of this access, and we also have individuals amongst us who are more, let's say, more refined, and they've gone through this a little bit more. They maybe be a little bit ahead of you in this, and you can relate with them and be with them, but not in the way that it used to be. And this may be a bit of a controversial topic, but the whole idea in the past of the Sufi sheikh being the head of a community, being the center of a community, where everybody walks around and kisses his hand and waits, on bated breath to light their cigarette, to bring them a drink of water, and to serve them and to do all that. That time is done. It's done. All those things were cultural expressions and developments of trying to maintain the real teachings, the essential teachings of the deen. Because the world around them, the ulama, the emirs, the kings, and all of them were suppressing the teachings, the essential teachings of Islam. They created the hegemony of certain madhabs. They lifted certain ulama to represent Islam, and then anybody else who had a divergent view of it, they were either killed, banished, or oppressed. And those people then gathered amongst great saints, great beings, and they gathered together quietly. I mean, when Imam Junaid al-Baghdadi, when he was the mufti of Baghdad, even then, he said, before I even gather with my people, he says, I lock 7 doors in front of me before that, because it wasn't available. Most people just were following what the rulership of the time had decreed it to be. And the rest of it, people had to be secretive about it and quiet about it. And the cultural development of Sufism throughout history, if you look at it, a lot of them were militaristic endeavors. The Morabitun, the Senussi, the Tijani, the Turks, the Naqshbandi. If you look at the action or the method of teaching and dhikr, a lot of it is very militaristic. I know this is kind of an interesting subject here, but when they do the hadra, when you get in a circle and you do the circle of hadra, everybody has to wear a uniform, a certain kind of a headdress. There's drums, there's amal, there's banners and so on. It's all because these people were also fighting against the authority and the status quo at one time or another to fight for the truth of Islam. Now, I'm not saying Sufism is over at all. I'm just saying that it's taking a different form as we move forward in time. And it doesn't have to be, there's a beautiful story, not beautiful, it's funny and beautiful, of Nasruddin Hujjah. I don't know if you must have heard of him. He's a kind of a comical character that he exists everywhere in the Muslim world. And so Nasruddin was invited to a big dinner after a Jummah. And some wealthy people invited him to come to their house for dinner. And he came for dinner, and he didn't wear his turban, right? Or he didn't wear his abba. So he came to the door, and the owner opened the door and said, "Who are you?" He said, "I'm," and he said, No. He said, "You're not, you're lying." He said, "Go away," and he went away, right? And he came back, he went to his house, put on his big turban and his robe, and he came to the house, and they said, "Oh yes, Nasruddin, Imam Nasr, come in the house." So he came in, and then he took his turban off, and he went to the table where all the food was, and he started to stuff his turban with food, right? Until it was like overflowing. And the owner said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Why are you stuffing your turban with food?" He said, "Well, you didn't invite me, you invited my turban, right?" So it's funny, but this is how we see things today. I mean, just because somebody has an amama, the word amama in Arabic, it means common. The Arabic word, it means common. It's not something that's a crown, somebody with a turban. It's one of the reasons why Sheikh Hamdi doesn't like to wear turbans anymore. Because he's fed up and he knows, it's not that he's fed up, he may be fed up too, but he also sees that that's not where things are going into the future. And why did I get off on this talk, connecting to the individual, is that each one of us has to become a responsible person for themselves, for their own spiritual growth. We want a direct relationship with Allah. We don't need a pope or a sheikh or anything to be in between us and what Allah has for us. If that's the case, you will. It's a loss. No sheikh, no teacher can give you anything that you don't already have. I want you to let that sink in. That is no teacher, no sheikh, no. In reality, no prophet can give you what you already have, because we are one self. That prophetic light is there for us to reflect into, and have that prophetic light emerge from your heart. It's the same with a sheikh or a teacher. If you reflect in them and you see something of quality in them, who's seeing it? And why are you seeing it? Because it's you. If you see love and compassion and enlightened being in someone, it's because you're resonating from the enlightened compassion and love that is already within you, residing within your ruh. So we're on a new adventure. We don't know. I had this discussion last night with Sheikh Hamdi about this. It's new territory. There are people, it's no longer this one culture, like Indian culture. And if you think about it, look at when you go to Turkey, it's all, hey, it's very jalal. And then you go to India and you listen to the qawwal and it's all love and beauty. And it's because these Sufi knowledges and practices emerged from the culture that they came from. In Iran, you get these guys in the mountains with their hair like flowing, and they're in the villages, they're farmers and sheep herders and so on, and the way they dress with the thick wool, and they wear their thick belts. Everything is expressed through a cultural filter. But now here we are. Indian, Algerian, Ethiopian, I don't know, Pakistani, American, Polish and Russian and African and, Swede maybe and German and Irish or something, Irish. I mean, we're in a different situation. It doesn't mean that the Sufi path and the essential principle Sufi teachings are invalid. No, they're all just as valid and just as real as they ever were. But how they are efficiently carried and transmitted, that is up to change. And we're in that right now. And I'm just putting that out there because I think it's important for us to hear this concept or hear this idea and to reflect on it. Because it will be, I believe, the future of Sufism. Like, think of this. What Junaid, another thing that Junaid said, it just occurred to me. He said today. What did he say? He said that Sufism was a reality without a name, and now it's a name, he said, without a reality. This is what he said. So where are we living now? I think we're coming back to it's a reality without a name, a differentiation. Maybe we can, amongst ourselves, we were attracted, many of us, originally from our Islamic backgrounds, or maybe some of us who weren't Muslim, were attracted initially to Sufism because we saw it was a departure from our original upbringing. People who just became Muslim, like myself, it's been 50 years ago, but when I first encountered Islam, I encountered it through the door of the Sufis. Why? Because it represented this beautiful departure from the theocratic and rule-based religion that I saw people who were blossoming in light and loved each other and had courtesy with each other. But hear what I'm saying. They had loved each other, they had courtesy with each other. I didn't care what they called themselves at that moment when I embraced Islam. They could have been Ooga Boogas or whatever. I would have joined them because they had the attributes, they had the qualities, they had the inner light that I was attracted to. And this is what I think we're all attracted to and what we all want for ourselves. So I think it's important for us to have that concept and that idea to reflect on. And we can talk about it more in detail, maybe individually. I'll read the rest of this. The human heart is most delicate faculty that needs constant purification and polishing. It rusts easily, and once it is clogged, the light of the soul will not shine efficiently through to the body and to the mind. Now, this is what we've been talking about here. Unless there is a purification of mind, then it will not reflect through the heart. The light of the heart will be diverted, will be remain dormant. So the mind has to be purified. Now the mind also, as Sheikh is saying, be purified by, the body will become purified, because without good thinking, without rational and discriminatory, knowledge-based thinking, you will become ill. And today you can see, most people are sick. They're eating processed foods, seed oils, sugars. They're destroying the body because we don't have discrimination. We just eat what we want or what we've been taught to want. And but if the mind wakes up and it becomes discriminating, and that true discrimination comes from the heart, the light of the heart, then it'll affect the health of the body as well. And then he goes on to say, the soul draws its life from the cosmic source, then beams it to the body and mind via the channels of the heart. So we are a conduit of that eternal light, represented as the soul within us, that manifests itself through the body and the mind. The pure heart beams the light of the soul and its cosmic reality on the physics and chemistry of the human entity, connecting the source of personal life and consciousness to the discernible person as a body-mind identity. So here's the thing. Once you connect with the Ruh bil-Amri Rabbi, the light within you, which has all the sifat, the names and attributes of Allah, and it permeates into the architecture of yourself, then the drives of the soul are taken up by the self, the nafs, the nafs structure. Then you are now on the path of purifying and becoming a more in-tuned conduit of the eternal light. And this is the formula we've all have and we've all been given. Everyone. And this is where we go right, and this is where we go wrong. If we don't purify the mind, and by extension the construct of the ephemeral and relative self, then our world and everything we do will be a mess. And it doesn't matter what you're doing or how esteemed of actions that you may think you're doing, if you don't have that inner clarity, it's not going to come to its highest fruition. I remember one story now is coming to me. There was a man, I can't remember his name now, but he was one of the most esteemed astrophysicists. It was in the early 80s. He came to visit Sheikh Abdul Qadir As-Sufi in London to discuss quantum physics. And this man would sit there and speak incredibly about quantum physics and cosmology and so on. And we were all aghast. I mean, we all said, wow, that's amazing. Because it was filtering through our vision of Tawheed also. But he was going on and on and on. And then tea came, and there was some pie, right? And all of a sudden, this man turned into a ravaging animal. He just no edeb, he just grabbed the pie, cut a slice for himself, and started eating it with crumbs falling onto his beard and on his shirt. And he didn't leave enough for anybody really around him. He was, where's the disconnect here? You see what I'm saying? I mean, it's, we have to have the inner referencing. So when that pie comes, what do? We look at it and we think about others. We think about what's the courtesy of the moment. Is the sheikh should have it maybe first, or maybe I'm the guest, I should be quiet and wait until. You're awake. You're in the moment. You're using the wisdom of the moment is coming to a clear mind. So you're able to then to behave in a clear way. And that clear way opens up the path for clear mind, heart, and body. If you're not clear and in the moment and present, just no matter what you think and you memorized or whatever it is, You're beastly. Then he goes on, he says, it is a junction between the infinite and the finite, the absolute truth and ever-varying relative and changing situations. So the mind is the junction of the infinite and the finite, absolute truth and the ever-relative and changing situations. So this is how we live a balanced life. We have within us, this is something we all must reflect on. We have within us the infinite, the representative of foreverness, beyond time and space, yet we experience ephemeral time and space. We have both. And the way that we can reconcile that is through a clear mind, a mind that understands and witnesses the signs that that we read in order for us to, that it's indicating that yes, there is God, the infinite, the beyond time, beyond space. Yes, there is the ephemeral, the ups and downs, as Allah says in the Quran, He created everything in pairs. Pairs, up, down, black, white, man, woman, negative, positive. You go on, the entire universe, negative, positive. Everything is waving in and out in a vibrational, dual nature of dualities. And all that, if you grasp that with the mind, then it throws you back on, well, what field of reality is all this duality happening upon? And the quantum physicists are also talking about this. That is there a theory of everything? Well, we know theory means about God. Theory is theo. It means about God. We have a theory. We know that by experiencing duality, by seeing the ups and downs, and by mind, by akal, then discerning that these are all ephemeral, changing, which indicates the non-changing. Because you can't, in truth, you can't experience change without something being non-changing. The experience of duality only rests and is the surface of the ocean of the non-dual, of the oneness. And that's who we are. We have that within us. And then the Sheikh goes on and he says, important discoveries are always made as part of creative insights and openings from the heart. So this is another beautiful thing. Creative insights and openings from the heart come through, these discoveries come through an element of creativity. We have within us one of the attributes of the Creator. We have in us what's called, maybe you've heard it, it's called the khayal, the ability to image, to imagine. Like if I said to you right now, imagine an elephant on the body of a cat. You can pretty much see that, because we have an infinite capacity. That's a weird image, I get it, yeah. But you can see it because you have an infinite creativity, a gift of khayal, which is called the khayal, that can image something. And that is it is a reflection of infinitive type of creativity. So with that, you can then, as the Sheikh says here, that creativeness, I'll read it again, important discoveries are always made as a part of creative insights and openings from the heart. These are the type of things that Einstein, had. He was looking at, the theories of, and came up with the theory of relativity by his creativity of putting together what he's witnessing in phenomenal world, in the relative world, a dynamic. But the only way he could do that is through this creative ability. And each one of us have the same creative ability, and we can apply it. And then he says, the mind functions within the field of dualities. We were talking about that. The mind functions within the field of dualities, and it needs its fair share of rest in order to be recharged by the soul. Emotional instability and psychological disturbances can be improved by recharge through higher consciousness and a wholesome heart, which is the source of healing and well-being. Now, recharge, okay? Rest. What does that mean? Recharge means that, in this case, that we've been given the salat. When you make the salat, there are a couple of elements, and last year I discussed this with folks. How are we doing on time?
15 minutes.
Okay. Recharge, we have the gift of the recharge. When you do your salat, there's two, I won't go into all the elements because I don't have time, but there are two elements that give you the recharge in order to be balanced in this process of creativity and your suluk on the path. One is the bowing, which is when you bow and you say, Subhana Rabbil Azimi wa bihamdi. Now that bowing is your acknowledgement of the awesome creation that you are witnessing and acknowledging, and the azim of it, the incredible height of its creativity and multiplicity is so awesome, it bends you. It makes you bend to it because it's beyond your capacity. So you're now yielding yourself, informing the heart, informing the mind by an action of salat, of the awesome realities of the creational effulgence. Subhan Rabbil Azimi wa bihamdi. That's one leg of the recharge. The second leg of the recharge is the sajda. You say, Subhan Rabbil A'la. Now there, when you're in sajda, all your sensory array, thank you, Star Trek, sensory array is submitted. Touch, taste, smell, hearing. What I think I covered. All those sensories are then put down as though you're saying, these are all now in dissolution. And then from the heart you say on your tongue, Subhan Rabbil A'la. And A'la is high beyond conception of high. It's like Akbar. Akbar doesn't mean Allah is great. It means Allah is greater than any possibility of comprehension. So when you say Subhan Rabbil A'la, you are entering into the mihrab of your soul. You're coming to this close, Kaba wa Qataini, close to disappearance. That is the access for the person who practices salat. That is the entryway, the recharge station for you then to taste the sukoon, the emptiness, and the fullness without any explanation. And this is what is the recharge for us. And that recharge again is that the mind functions within the field of dualities. We all, every day, boom, boom, boom, we're going there, dualities, and it needs its fair share of rest in order to be recharged by the soul. When you do the Subhana Rabbil Ala, it is, you're getting rest from the soul, not to the soul, but from the soul, because the soul is in total glorification, in total beyond time, beyond space, not affected by duality. So it is in perfect rest. It is in perfect dynamic to recharge by the soul. Emotional instability and psychological disturbances can be improved by recharge through higher consciousness and a wholesome heart, which is the source of healing and well-being. Healthy life is that which is in balance between head and heart and the illumined life that radiates from the soul. So all of and everything radiates from the Ruh, which is Bil Amri Rabbi. Most human guests, now this is interesting, he calls us guests, I love that. Most human guests can be traced to the one question: who am I? We cannot deny the physical, the chemical, biological realities of who we are. But anything that changes is not reliable. And we remain insecure. You can access who you really are through the heart. And that is the home of your soul or spirit, a reflection of the divine reality, perpetual, constant, and ever present. That is who you really are. Fantastic. You can access who you really are through the heart, and that is the home of your soul or spirit, a reflection of divine reality, perpetual, constant, and ever present. That is who you really are. The awakened being considers the rationality and reason of the mind, then reflects upon the soul for guidance and approval. The so-called you is only a shadow or an image of your soul, which is the source of durable spiritual wisdom, where fear, sorrow, and guilt are eliminated. Allahu Akbar. So, as the Diwan we read yesterday says so clearly, وَكُلُّ حُبٍّ لِغَيْرِ رَبِّي فِيهِ أَذَابُ فِيهِ شَقَاءُ. That in every love, other than the love of Allah, that connectivity, love is the glue and the connectivity that each one of us, that all the universe has. The whole universe is created upon love. That is the only cure for us. He is that love is huwa shifa'u. That is the only shifa, the medicine for us, the cure for us. And we all have everything we need to, by grace, by Allah's grace, we have everything that we need to move toward a more balanced life, a more enlightened life, a more happy and joyful life, a life more of acknowledging khair, acknowledging the goodness, and being able to then be, as Allah says in the end of the first ayah of Surah Al-Baqarah, He says, وَرَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. And from what we give you, what we've given you, you give out. This is the formula for the balanced person. You pray, you believe, and you acknowledge the unseen. In the first ayah, if you read it, it's all about that. Acknowledging the unseen is before establishing salat in that ayah. And you establish the salat, you establish your behaviors in every way, And then وَرَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. And from what we, and it's so beautiful when Allah refers to himself in the plural. It means when you hear Allah say we, you have to, this is what I do, and I feel I feel it works, is when you hear the word we, just imagine, use your khayal, that it's the voice of all things, the universe itself. Is that we, everything in concert and symphony and everything that exists has all given you this risk that you can then become a conduit of that. That you have the effulgence of all creation, come be available to then, if you're out of the way, allow that yourself to be a conduit of that light. So this is the formula, and I think we finished this talk, this session. This is the formula that I believe is the working one. It was certainly I've looked at this, I've lived it as much as that I can, and it has been beneficial. And if there's anything that I said that may have offended anyone, I apologize for that. And I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us people who truly remember Him and reconnect with the everlasting light that is within us. We ask Allah to really make us people of His order, His challenge to be وَرَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, to give out from what we've been given. It's not ours. We don't own anything. We don't live by our own energy and light, but other than the light of Allah and the order of Allah and taken from the soul, which is bil amri Rabbi. And we ask Allah to give us the strong intention to hold on to the rope of Allah, which is this light that is within us, and keep it in front of our minds, to be careful of the whispering of the despairer and the one who makes us feel non-deserving, and remember that Allah has written upon Himself mercy beyond our capability to comprehend. And may Allah protect all those amongst us who are in need, and our families, our teachers, our friends, our wives and husbands and children, and may we live a life that is truly satisfying and content and in the service of all things. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim. غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
I do have two questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
My first question, you mentioned reflect on the soul for guidance. How do we know that reflection is actually coming from the soul and not from the nafs?
You will know that by your begging at the door of your soul. By when you do your salat and you're pushing your head into the ground and you're saying Subhana Rabbil Ala, you are awake and aware and you are tasting that moment. It may not come right away. It may not come in the way that you think it would come, but sincerity is the key. If you're sincere, sincerity is an energetic pathway. If you really like this question, it's a sincere question. If you have a sincere question, Allah will not deny the answer. Because the truth is, any question only emerges because the answer is already there. You just have to discover it. Your question is correct. All of us ask that, how do we know? How do we know? But it would not have emerged from you had it not come from the drive of knowledge itself, of wanting to know. So it requires a little, I think, work from us, the salat, the dhikr, whatever it takes, to reflection, reading, being with people who you look at their actions and their being, and you want to reflect that, you want to taste that, you want to make it your own. There's no formula. Everybody's going to come to this realization in their own particular way. None of us are the same. Nobody in this room has the same fingerprint. This is a sign from Allah. Nobody has the same fingerprint, but we all have the same soul. So if we all have the same soul, it means that the prophetic light, who's been informing you, is already within you. So the question comes as a result of the answer. The fullness of everything is already within you. But how do you bring it out? How do you acknowledge it? This is like fingerprints, your own particular way. And we all have to find our way to do this. Whatever works for you, continue to do that way. Certainly stick to your prayers and your fasting and all the adab and thing that that confirmed wisdoms and knowledges that we get from the Quran and from prophetic teaching. But, it'll be very different for everybody, but the same answer's there. What was the other question?
The second question was, you mentioned that there shouldn't be anyone between us and Allah in terms of having a sheikh or teacher. But when we're in a moment that we're in a need of guidance or confusion, or I guess the ultimate answer will be turning to Allah, but where do we turn to be able to maybe get some answers, to be able to get to Allah?
Yeah, you turn to the sheikh and to the teachers and to your friends and to your mother and to whoever that you trust. It's not that you don't. I'll give you an example. Sheikh Hamdi and I were talking about this very thing last night. He was talking to me about how if you take off your turban and you take out your title, but you're still teaching the same thing, right? What is it? It's just the packaging and the presumptuousness, and also your evoking reliability and relying on someone. Someone can be a reflector, a mirror. That's all that. If you have somebody like who you trust as a sheikh, as a teacher, then your relationship with that person is that of mirroring and reflection. So yes, you do go to people for counsel, for shura, for advice, for being in presence of that person that may touch you and expand your heart. I'm not saying that any of that is not on the table. That's all on the table. But ultimately, whatever you get in reflection and advice and anything, its source and reality is within you. Because a sheikh or a teacher can only reflect that which is within you. If they reflect and talk to you about things more than within you, that's a power play. And they're not to be followed. No. If they say to you, stick with me, in 2 years I'll give you enlightenment, run. Really. We need to use our aql here. They can only give you reflection, give you a dhawq, a taste, a mirroring, but they cannot give you what you're looking for. Do you see the difference? That's what it is. And too many times people today and throughout history, they imbue or imbibe the sheikh with these other God-like attributes. If you do that, you'll be torn apart. You'll blame the sheikh later. You'll tar and feather him because he didn't live up to what? To your expectations. I'm just using you as an example. To your expectations. And that's the final result. of it. You are projecting attributes into someone that they don't have. But do they have a heart that's maybe enlightened, a wisdom that they've gained, a knowledge, a mind that's clear, you know, a overflowing love and concern for creation? Then you can mirror that in that person and taste it in your own self and say thank you to the one who reflected that to you. Say thank you and thank Allah. Because it is revealed and discovered within yourself. Do you see the difference? And this is what we have to really, I'm saying to everybody here, burn that into your head. Otherwise you're going to wind up just, you know, throwing the baby out with the bathwater, which so many people do all the time. And so many people just go down the drain with them. It's just the way it is. Now, Allah is merciful. If they may come to something else somewhere else, good luck. But for us, as today sitting here as people together, as friends, as a family, I'm just saying, be careful. Be aware of what's in your heart about these things. And what you're, you know, the Prophet ﷺ said, I am not the father of anyone. He says this, I'm not your father. So don't make, you know, your teachers and so on a father. And most everybody, they have a problem with their fathers, right? So don't make, you know, I see everybody smiling when I say that. So, you know, you just don't do that. And then you'll be okay. And then you can have a good relationship with your teachers, with your sheikh, with your mentors and all of that, and have a balance. You're welcome.
I need some clarification between the soul and the ruh.
Right. So, if I understand you right, there's many in the Quran. The word for soul and ruh and nafs sometimes is interchangeable. It depends on the context. What I'm talking about here is specifically when they asked the Prophet, what do we say about the soul? He said, al-ruh bil-amri rabbi. The soul, the ruh, he mentioned, here using the word ruh, is by the order of Allah, the qadr of Allah, meaning that soul within you is seamlessly connected to the source of all souls beyond time and space. You, all of us here, have something within us, a representation, a reality within us, which is beyond time and space, which all of from the essence of Allah, which is within that reality, represented in our hearts, the drives of the Asma Husna and the Sifat are there and emanate from it. So we get our reality from beyond time and space, through the filter of the Asma Husna and the Sifat, permeating into the creation of the self and the ability to comprehend and the intellect and to relative consciousness. That's the model that I'm talking about. Self and soul. Relative and ephemeral, conditioned, beyond time, beyond space. All of the attributes of Allah, all the sifat, all the names, His essence, His qudrat, everything on one is within us, as well as this persona that we call Mustafa or whoever, Ahmed or Muhammad or whatever it is. So this is what I mean when I say that. Yeah.
Just as an extension of that, you said we all have the same soul.
Yes.
I don't understand.
We're created from oneself. Nafsin wahida. This is not only a prophetic saying, I believe, I'm not a scholar of the Quran, but I believe I've read that in the Quran. Somebody here may know better than me. But it is a reality. We all emerged from Allah's kun fayakun. Allah said to let it be, and it is. Everything emerges from oneself. Allah was with Himself, by Himself, and He says about Himself that in Kanzul Mafia, He said, I was a treasure hidden. Hidden means what? It means there was no attribute, no reflection. And this is something that I certainly can't comprehend with my mind. But I believe it because I see the signs of it everywhere I look. I was a treasure hidden, Allah says. Wanting, and the word for it, wanting is /loving, to be known. So I manifested the creation to be known. So that one self, original self, manifests the creation in diversity. And that diversity is defined by relative consciousness. The identification and the creation of the self form through the evolutionary process from the beginning of a permeated cell some 300 billion years ago up until now, that we have this animal, vegetable self, that we have all the evolutionary patterns all within us that emerged from a very beginning before time, through time, evolved into finally a being, a human being, which Sheikh Hamdi said yesterday and he said to the angels, I'm going to put a Khalifa in this world. What is a Khalifa? He's a representative, a mirror image, you may say, of the reality itself, but in a relative conditioned form. So we have within us, because where is God if he's not ever, wherever, ever within you? And there is no God in the sky or in a church or in a mosque. This is something that has to be contemplated. This is the big paradox, that we have to become one. This is what the whole science of Tawheed, of dhikr, of being together, your salat, everything we've been talking about is all designed and organized around to realize, discover that.
Does that mean then that it is the nafs or the self that's going to be judged on the Day of Judgment?
I think so, yes. From what I know, maybe others can chime in, because how can you can't judge the soul. Now, we're not saying soul synonymous with nafs here. The soul is bil amri rabbi. It is beyond time and space. It's the source of the sifat and the names of it. It is pure. So what is judged, and that's a whole other subject. Probably take a couple hours. What is judgment in the first place? What does it mean, judge? I mean, whenever you hear judgment, you see a judge court is in order, and bring the souls here, and that's not what it's about. This is all waham, images that have merged through organized religion, and it's another subject that should be discussed. But yes, it has to be the self, because the self exists in the world of duality, and duality, you can have right and wrong, you can have up and down, you can have dark and light. So there has to be some kind of balancing, bringing back to balance. Really, if you want to know what judgment essentially is rebalancing. Now, we're not talking about had, where somebody kills someone and, then we have to make a decision on. I'm not talking about earthly judgments, but ultimately what you're talking about a higher judgment, that has to be within the realm of rebalancing and bringing back into the arc of evolutionary realization towards Allah Azza wa Jal. Balance, rebalance, recache, balance, reforming.
I think the last question I saw was maybe for Amira. And then we'll
I had 3 words: heart, nafs, and mind. And I just want to understand what exactly the nafs is like. Is it something that your mind creates, or is it something that comes from your heart? And if you want to start working on it, like yesterday we talked about letting go of who you think you are and letting go of concepts like self-reliance and things like that. Do you start working on it through your mind or through your emotion? Like, I just need some help putting that.
I think it deserves a larger explanation, And I think your questions are very important, and I really think we should have the time where we can, and I'm sure Sheikh Hamdi can break that down for you also very well. But just touching on it, the mind that you have is a construct of the self. So mind and, you may say, the self are very similar, are the same, because they both are in a binary. The mind is a binary creation. It is a discerning thing that we're just talking about simple mind now. That we know this food is, when we were Neanderthals and we're running around, or hunter-gatherers, this is good, this is not bad, this is bad, this I'm safe here, I'm not safe there. Cold and hot and survival. It's that binary thing. But then there's another higher mind, higher consciousness, in which it's a reflective, and it enlightens the mind, and that comes from the soul. Fikr comes from the soul, and that is developed through what we talked about: your prayer, your dhikr, your khidmah, your service, your anything that you can do to utilize the mind in a way that you do to purify it, and not just see everything as black and white, but in a reflective way, so you can garner and glean knowledges, understandings, signs. I'll give you one clue here because we're running out of time. Look at your life like a book. Therefore, you're going to use your mind, yourself, because it's unfolding in a kind of like a thematic way, So do what we've been ordered, that the Prophet was ordered to do. Iqra, read. Consider your life a book. Read your book. Don't let it be read to you and you just sit there and let it all happen, right? And not understand what you're being told, you're being communicated to. Read it. That means what? It means being awake. It means making the time inside yourself to awaken, to be in the moment, to be present, and then read it. What is my life saying to me? And if I can't understand what my life is saying to me in this particular moment, maybe I'll ask my friend or my teacher. Look, this happened, and I'm not having trouble reading it. But if you take the view that your life is a book and it has an author, and it has a story, and it has a purpose, then you begin to understand all these other elements that are in it. On a very simple, but it deserves a bit more unpacking. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay.
Can I make a quick suggestion?
Yeah.
I had really difficult time to understand the whole thing. There's a really good book called The Knowing Heart by Kabir Helminski, and it explains it beautifully in that book, and it's a little bit more clear in my head when I read that book. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, if you would suggest it, but
Oh yeah, definitely would suggest it. Yeah.
Kabir Helminski, The Knowing Heart. I highly recommend that one to make it clear.
Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum. Alaikum salam.
Thank you. I was going to ask, what is this book? I forgot if you didn't-
Garden of Meaning.
Oh, okay, beautiful. Inshallah.